You're watching Atlanta Small Business Profile with your host and small business expert, Ted Jenkins.
Hey everybody, this is Ted Jenkins, small business expert, right here on the Atlanta Small Business Profile. Thanks so much for joining us today. I'm super excited because I've got on a special guest and friend of mine, Lynn Smith. She's not only the anchor for On the Story for Headline News, she's been on that channel for many, many years, but also launched something cool called Lynn Smith TV. I recommend that you check it out. Lots of great information on there. Lynn, thanks so much for joining us today.
Ted, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure for me to finally be the one answering questions since we've spent about 6 or 7 years having me drill you with questions. So, hi, it's so good to be here. It is
being on the other side of the table, but you know, there's a lot of people that have probably seen you on TV for a lot of years now, but don't know a lot about your background. So you actually started out as a newspaper reporter, and is that what decided to get you into being a journalist?
Yeah, I was writing for the newspaper, and I actually anchored a show on MUTV. I went to Miami of Ohio. And I fell in love with making television. I mean, telling stories, but it actually went back even earlier than that. On my kindergarten report card, it said, "Lynn asks too many questions."
That's what the teacher said in the beginning.
That was my critique. And then I have a video when I was about 8 or 9 years old of me doing a faux newscast with my sister and my cousin. It was just, I don't know what it was. It was something that I've just always had this bug.
Were you always on the anchor side, or did you start behind the camera producing? I mean, how did you learn that?
I actually had the very, very fortunate opportunity to work for the Today Show as a producer. And that gave me the writing skills. So I had the writing skills, but I didn't have the other piece of the puzzle, which was the hardest part. And that's the on-camera part. It's just not natural. Ted, we've talked about it so much throughout the years that this is something that takes time, like anything. It is not natural to look at a screen and just start talking at it. And so I went through a couple different local markets and cut my teeth, and then made it back to New York, and have been anchoring since then.
So I want to talk a little bit about what you've recently launched here, which is Lynn Smith TV. And a lot of people don't know a lot about you. And that's why I wanted to really do this show today. It's not just the business and what you're doing today, but all this great content you're creating. But somehow you're able to balance being a mom and have this career where you're anchor of a TV show. And it's a lot of stuff. So what are you going to be doing with Lynn Smith TV?
Well, first you say balance. I'm doing a terrible job at that. I'm teetering most of the time. You know, speaking of small businesses, I just want to point out the reason that this even came to be was because one of my best friends started her own business called Adept Marketing. And I'm all about supporting small businesses. She and I collaborated through months and months and months of thinking of different ways to connect with our viewers, to grow our viewership, for people to get to know me more, and for people to reach out directly to me. So we put together different sections that represent my on-camera experience, that represents my social media presence, and that represents ways that you can connect directly with me. And it all came together in a beautiful way because she gave a lot more of that touch that I really could never have done since I'm not tech savvy at all. But I think that it just really came across what we're trying to do on the show and on social media.
And it looks like you chose Instagram as the main platform. You know, there are a lot of small business owners that watch this show and wonder, should I be on Facebook? Should I be on LinkedIn? Why did you choose Instagram and just IGTV as sort of the platform where you're doing a lot of these interviews now?
Yeah, so I've pivoted to doing a lot of IGTV, and I'm loving it because I have no one giving me time cues in my ears. So I'm allowed to do it for as long as I want, as long as you stay watching. And you know, I wish that I had a more intentional answer to this question because it really was just more of my brand. It felt more comfortable to me. Right. Facebook, I don't go on as often. And actually, I will say probably more of our viewers are on Facebook than they are on Instagram, but it felt more comfortable to me. And it's where I went the most. So that's where I felt like I wanted to put my content. But I don't know that that answer is the best for every single business. It just happened to be for me.
Right. You're just saying we got to pick the platform that probably suits best what you're doing. And what I love about the post that you put up, and I think it's an interesting discussion, is that you really, I think, sort of peel the artichoke back and say, hey, TV is not always real life. Like, this is like some of the real life. I have 2 boys. There are some days that just things go absolutely crazy. I mean, is it a good idea for business owners to sort of peel the artichoke back about themselves and sometimes put it out there so people can see more about who they are, not just the products and services that they sell?
Well, here's why I felt it was so important. I have a job where I hope every single time you turn on the television, you feel like you are getting to know the real me. And you do, but it's the more polished version of me. And I don't want anyone to ever think, wow, how in the world does she do it? She's got so put together. She's got makeup on. She has 2 kids at home. How in the world is she doing this? I'm not doing it well. And I thought that was so important, especially for other working moms. I wanted them to know that. And I wanted them to feel connected to me in that way, because I am exactly like them, and it is impossible to do it all. So I do it the best that I can. When it comes to businesses and whether it's important to peel back the onion, that's where I think a lot of businesses make mistakes in responding in the media. I think that they want to seem like they're perfect.
Right.
I think that they want to seem like they never make a mistake. And the ones that are most successful in avoiding a catastrophe when it comes to the media is when they pretend something that didn't happen, or to pretend that something didn't happen when it did, and then not being honest and sincere in their apology for it. And sometimes you just got to say, we messed up. We're human. We've done something that we shouldn't have done. Okay.
Right.
And unfortunately, that's not something that they want to do all the time. They have the wrong person advising them in that regard.
I mean, that's hard for a lot of people, especially a business, because you worry, will it affect my sales? Will my customers not come back? But a lot of companies, I think, do poorly with their corporate strategy, Lynn, that they don't really think about how they respond to the media, because you know so much about the media business. You know, what are the big mistakes that you see companies make on sort of the other side of the TV camera? What mistakes do they make about, you know, building out their corporate strategy, and how they respond to things like you're talking about when their companies make mistakes?
You know, I hate to say it, but I think the biggest problem is when there are people advising some of these larger companies, they have never been in TV, and they
Right.
don't know the cornerstone of what makes a story a story. And, you know, I talk to interns all the time. I talk to people that want to be on television all the time, and they're just like, you know, how do I make this story great? And the one thing I learned, and this is a shout out to my very first assistant news director, Dave Parker, who gave me this advice in Philadelphia. He said, Dave Parker, tell me why I should care and put it in headline form. It should be the very first line out of the gate. And, you know, something that I notice when we reach out to companies for a statement, or when we reach out to get an idea of where this story was going, it's 15 pages down in their story of the headline, because they're going through all the details up top, things that they think they should be checking off. The headline needs to be up front, because it's the first thing everybody reads, and it's the thing that's going to be the takeaway. You know, somebody posted somewhere, your brand is not the story that you tell, it's the story people remember. And it's something I think businesses forget often, because they're in a different mindset of not what makes a story, then what protects us. How do we avoid this from getting bigger? There's no avoiding it. It's out there.
Well, it's so true. And I think that a lot of businesses think about, you know, getting on TV, and obviously we've got a nice local market here in Atlanta, but is there a right way for a small business owner potentially to pitch a story to an NBC here locally, or a CBS? You know, I think a lot of people think, wow, I've got an interesting story, but like you're talking about, just because you created a new product doesn't mean you have an interesting story. Is there a best way to do that if you're going to local news media?
Yeah, and you know, I go across in
I mean,
different conferences.
You get thousands of pitches all the time.
Thousands of pitches, and I try, and I do this presentation. I've done it for Mom 2.0, a conference for mommy bloggers, in telling them how to be on TV. My executive producer joined me in the last one, because it amazes me how much money people spend on PR companies, and they have no idea what emails are being blasted out. And I can show them, and I put up my inbox, and it shows them 50,000 emails that are just sitting there unread. And then I give examples of some emails that I have gotten from PR companies. And it just leaves you shaking your head of just like, do you know what show I host? And then there are examples of really great pitches. And here's what makes them great. They put the headline in the subject, and they tell me why I should care about it. They give me a subject that's compelling when it comes to who's going to be my guest. They show me clips of that person, So I know, and I click on that and I watch probably 15 seconds before I know whether or not someone's going to be good on TV. The same is true for news directors. For anyone who wants to be on TV, they're going to watch about 15 seconds of your reel. It takes that long. So put your best stuff up front. Put the very best thing you ever has come out of your mouth at the very first frame, because that's pretty much the only thing they have time for. And then it's so often bullet pointing, 3 or 4 bullet pointing your message, a really good theme, and then 3 or 4 bullet points that we can say, yeah, there's meat here. There's something that I can make a story out of. And I don't necessarily think you always have to hire a PR firm to do that. If you can get in the door, once you're in the door, you're set. If you're a good guest, Ted Jenkins, you know this because you were on once and then we had you on for 6 years every weekend.
Right. I'm wondering, as you talk about on the story, you know, you've come up with something that I think is genius on there. And folks, you really need to watch this, called The Simple Truth. What was the germination of that? How did that come out of like something that you write and you do every day for On the Story?
You know, On the Story is a passion project for myself and Carrie O'Connor, who's my executive producer, and the incredible team of producers that we have. I have to say, this is the best team I've ever worked with in television. We've all had this goal of bringing people the most important news, but then also digging deeper into really the things that before COVID were the injustices, the things that never were seeming to change, or the things that nobody was talking about but should be, because it wasn't making every single news feed, which you were seeing. So we had been very, very methodical in picking out those stories, and it really came to a point where I had something to say on some of these bigger topics. And it wasn't my opinion, there are facts behind this.
Right.
And so The Simple Truth is fact-based analysis of the biggest talkers of our time. And you can go to lynnsmithtv.com and you can go to the Simple Truth tab and get an idea of what some of those have been. And now we've been doing it in an Instagram live version of it with guests, because we are off the air during this pandemic so that our colleagues can be as safe as possible, but then also so some of our resources can go to CNN and everyone can get on air safely. So I appreciate those words so much, because it's really been a passion project for us.
Well, you've done thousands of interviews. I know you've interviewed all kinds of people, from governors and senators to doctors and many people in between. What's been your favorite interview over the years? Do you have one that's been memorable that you've done that was just, that you were like, wow, I can't believe I'm interviewing this person?
Yeah, it's a hard question because it has been incredible to interview so many of the different people that I have, but Dolly Parton was my number one most favorite interview. And I still have the picture on my desk. I don't have the picture on my desk of anyone else but my kids and my husband, of Dolly Parton and I. I walk into the Four Seasons in Atlanta to do the interview, and I walk into her suite, which was unbelievable. And she just shimmies in there looking as amazing as you would have possibly imagined. And she could not have been nicer. It was as if you had been best friends with her since childhood. And that is why everybody loves Dolly Parton. And she gave me this big, huge basket of treats from Dollywood. I mean, it will forever be my favorite interview. And she will forever be my favorite celebrity.
Everybody loves Dolly Parton. I wanted to thank you, Lynn, for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us today for the program. Folks, you have to check out Lynn Smith TV. Check out Lynn on the story and on Morning Express. And she's just an amazing person. You just got to follow her now. Follow her on Instagram. So much good stuff. So I appreciate you giving us your advice today and giving advice to small business owners so much.
I appreciate it too, Ted. And now I'm going to flip the script. And anytime you're on my show, I'm going to be the one answering the questions. I loved this. It was so much fun. You take care.
Thanks so much. And folks, for business owners that are out there watching the program today, you heard it today. You know, take a stab at this. Maybe you pitch something to the 10 o'clock news, but get the story. And make sure you remember what Lynn talked about today. The headline. The headline is everything. Make sure that you have your story right. And you too can continue to increase your business here in Atlanta. Thanks so much for watching the Atlanta Small Business Profile. I'm Ted Jenkins, small business expert. Look forward to seeing you next week.